A wallet with cash sitting on a table in a Tokyo cafe will probably still be there an hour later. That is not a cultural observation. It is a statistical artifact of a system that produces a specific outcome. In 2023, Japan recorded a homicide rate of 0.23 per 100,000 people. The United States, the same year, recorded 5.76. That is a 25 times gap. Two wealthy democracies. Two completely different numbers. Now look east. Singapore, a city-state of 6 million people on the other side of Asia, recorded 0.069 homicides per 100,000, the lowest of any major country on Earth. And then Iceland, 400,000 people on a volcanic island in the North Atlantic. Total prison population, 140, not per 100,000. Total. The entire country has 140 people behind bars. 4 countries, 4 totally different systems. And if you think the explanation is culture, discipline, or national character, this video is going to disappoint you. The real reasons are institutional, specific, and in some cases deeply uncomfortable. Let us start with numbers, so the rest of the video has a floor to stand on. Homicide rates, sourced from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. Japan 0.23, Singapore 0.069, Norway 0.72, England and Wales 1.15, Iceland 1.29, the United States 5.76. Incarceration rates, from the World Prison Brief. Japan 33 per 100,000, Iceland 35, Singapore 178, the United States 542. The US locks up roughly 16 times more people than Japan, and has a murder rate 25 times higher. Now the thing you have to say if you are being honest, Japan's crime is rising. Reported penal code offenses in 2024 were up 4.9% year over year. Major crimes were up 18%. That is the 3rd year in a row it has gone up. Japan is still one of the safest countries in the world. It is just becoming less so. And any channel that leaves that out is not giving you the real picture. So why is Japan so low? 4 institutional reasons. Each one is checkable. Reason 1, almost no guns. The Small Arms Survey estimates 0.3 civilian firearms per 100 people in Japan, versus 120.5 in the United States. That is a 400 times gap. Japan's firearms and swords control law makes owning a handgun functionally impossible for a civilian. Ammunition is tracked by police. Gun homicide in Japan runs in the single digits per year for a country of 125 million people. Reason 2, Koban, community policing. Japan has about 6,200 Koban, small neighborhood police boxes, usually staffed by 1 or 2 officers. You can walk to one from most urban addresses. The Koban is where you go for directions, a lost phone, a missing child. It is not a station you call, it is a place you walk into. Officers in Koban conduct regular home visits in the surrounding blocks. They know who lives where. That proximity between police and residents changes the equation before crime ever happens. Reason 3, prosecutor discretion. This is where the 99.9% conviction rate comes from, and it is not magic. Japanese prosecutors receive roughly 800,000 to 1 million referred cases a year. They decline to indict about 62% of them. Suspended prosecution. They actually indict roughly 31%. The cases that reach trial are the ones where prosecutors already have a confession, video, or overwhelming physical evidence. That is how you get 99.9%. It is not proof that everyone is guilty. It is proof that Japanese prosecutors only fight cases they are certain they will win. Reason 4, economic equality. Japan's Gini coefficient is low by developed country standards. Strong social insurance. Historically very low unemployment. None of that is a complete explanation by itself, but it is a floor under everything else. Now, Iceland. Population 400,000. About the size of Cleveland, Ohio. Total prison population, 140 people. And here is the data literacy trap. Iceland's homicide rate swung from 0.3 in 2019 to 1.37 in 2020. Not because the country suddenly became dangerous, because a single additional murder moved the rate. When your denominator is that small, the numbers are volatile. The real reasons Iceland has low crime are structural. Tiny population, geographically isolated on an island, near universal free healthcare and education, one of the highest rates of gender equality on Earth. Police historically did not carry firearms. Iceland is fascinating, but it is not a model you can copy. It is a model that works because the denominator is small. Singapore. This is the hardest part to tell honestly. 0.069 homicides per 100,000, the lowest among major jurisdictions. And the method is not comfortable. Trafficking 15 grams of pure heroin carries a mandatory death sentence under the 1973 Misuse of Drugs Act. Caning is a judicial punishment for a defined list of offenses, including vandalism. The police-to-population ratio is high. Surveillance camera coverage is dense and normalized. Firearms, alcohol, and public gatherings are strictly licensed. The trade-off is explicit. Singapore chose a system where the state punishes hard and watches closely. The result is a very low crime rate. And not just on paper. Walk around Singapore at 2 a.m. and nothing happens to you. The streets are lit, clean, and empty of threat. Whether that trade is acceptable is a question this video is not going to answer for you. What we can say is that Singapore did not achieve low crime by accident. They chose it, and they pay for it in ways most democracies would not. Now the United States. 5.76 per 100,000. 542 incarcerated per 100,000. The reasons are known and they are not mysterious. 120 civilian firearms per 100 people. Over 18,000 separate police agencies with no unified command. Extreme regional variation. The United States is not one crime country. It is 50. Structural inequality feeds mass incarceration, which feeds recidivism, which feeds crime. It is a loop. But the comparison that matters most against the other 3 countries is the gun stock. If you remove gun homicides from the US total, the remaining non-gun homicide rate drops to roughly the level of Western Europe, around 1.5 per 100,000. That is still higher than Japan, but it is no longer an outlier. Guns are not the only factor. They are the factor that separates the United States from countries at a similar wealth level. And now for the part that makes this more complicated than the thumbnail suggests. Japan's low crime is real, but it is partly a story of selective enforcement. Prosecutors only charge cases they will win, which inflates the conviction rate but suppresses the indictment rate. Reported domestic violence rates in Japan are historically low, because reporting rates are historically low. Sexual assault statistics are depressed by structural underreporting. Japan's crime is rising, meaningfully and consistently, for 3 straight years. Iceland's low crime is partly an artifact of its tiny population. Singapore's low crime comes at a cost most countries would not pay. And the United States is not high because Americans are uniquely violent. It is high because of guns plus inequality. Each country's crime rate is the downstream effect of specific institutional choices made over decades. None of them are copy-paste models. So if you actually want to lower crime in any country, the list of levers is not mysterious. Restrict access to firearms. Fund community policing that talks to people before arrests happen. Provide economic floors, so crime is not the rational option. Accept that strict sentencing lowers some crimes and costs you other things. And measure your own statistics honestly, and report them without political spin. No country has zero crime. A few countries are unusually close. The reasons are specific and checkable. The honest version is always better than the viral version. If you want more stories about what actually makes countries different, instead of what we tell ourselves makes them different, subscribe. Next time, we are doing school lunches. Specifically, why 5 countries feed their children in 5 completely different ways, and what that says about everything else.